And last but not least, right? So this is like the true Rome section of this
Right.
episode here, right? Yeah, we're gonna be talking about gladiators, right? So we talk about Gladiator 1
Yes.
and 2, right? So as far as the first one goes, we're not gonna do like some lengthy breakdown of everything that happened, but we just gonna talk about how we feel about the show, from since we first saw it back in 2000, right? And then we're gonna jump into Gladiator 2, right? We'll try to keep things as spoiler free as possible, but there may be one or two spoilers when it comes to Gladiator 2, right? So when it comes to the first one, right, just to kick things off, right? I will never forget just the hype surrounding it, right? I just got cable and internet and whatnot. Well, I had internet before, but first I just got cable, right? So I was seeing the ads on local TV and on cable as well, right? So I was hyped up. I was like, all right, Gladiator, okay, Russell Crowe, Ridley Scott, big sword and sandal epic, right? And that's the one thing that really makes the show stand out to this day, right? It was like the return of that genre, right?
Yeah, it was kind of shocking, that they pulled this off.
Yeah, and in particular that Hollywood studios would have actually been like, yeah, let's do this, right? I think if I'm not mistaken, like a couple of like in the mid to late 90s, yeah, these sort of period pieces, these adventures, like swashbuckling films, didn't kind of underperform, right? Or like flops, right? So like stuff like Cutthroat Island, which was trying to bring back the pirate genre, but then it would take like a couple of years after this movie come out for Pirates of the Caribbean to bring it back, right? There was like the 13th Warrior, which I thought was pretty solid as well, right? For what it was, right? It was trying to bring that sort of like dark fantasy adventure style to things, right? But that was a flop, right? But this one was like, okay, we're going back to that big budget, that whole Technicolor era of like sword and sandal films of the 50s and 60s, right? It's like, all right, cool, no problem, right? I will never forget seeing this in what still remains one of my favorite double features I've ever been to, right? Courtesy of Windsor RIP, right? So remember, this is 2000, right? So I saw this alongside Mission Impossible 2. Right. And at the time, and still to this day, it was just an amazing double feature, Dread. Like, the show MI2 first, and I was just like, holy shit, this is amazing. The stuff with the bikes, the music, John Woo just doing insanity, with the action, and of course, Tom Cruise just being a badass. It was great, right? And just to follow that up with Gladiator, boy, I was just like, wow, I was like in heaven, right? And then I also, one thing I always remember about that double is that it was all ages PG advice, because I knew Gladiator was rated R, right? So yeah, when it had moments where like, the moment where this guy literally gets decapitated by, the spear thing that was on the chariot, right? During that whole battle scene. I was like, what? Sorry, not decapitated. His torso got chopped off now. I was like, what? Yeah. Like, I see this is not all ages PG advice, thing. I was going mad now. I was just like, holy shit. Like stuff like that you would have seen at 14 years and over stuff, right? It's not like I couldn't see that, because I think I was 14 or 15 at the time, right? But it was all ages, though, which means kids was in the audience and they saw a man get split in half, right? But yeah, at the time, I was blown away by that story and just the epic scope of it. Of course, I think the secret sauce said though was Hans Zimmer's score, which was just amazing. Just look, that I forgot the name of the actual song, right? But the song that plays for the opening battle scene was burnt into my memory. That entire opening battle was burnt into my memory. It was just so incredible and epic and rousing. Dude. Just that music was just so rousing, right? And yeah, it for me, it put me on to Ridley not to Ridley Scott, to Russell Crowe, right? Because I wasn't really too familiar with him. With the exception of a little movie called Virtuosity with him and Denzel Washington. It's so funny the whole things come full circle, right? Because Denzel and Russell Crowe will work together on American Gangster, and then Denzel will be in Gladiator 2, which you'll get into in a bit, right? But yeah, Gladiator. Well, when I first saw it, I absolutely loved the film, right? But I was honestly surprised when I saw it won Oscars, right? Especially Best Picture. Though the best actor thing, I was like, all right, well, Russell Crowe, the big performance, that was the hyped up performance for that time, right? But Best Picture, I was like, all right, okay. And to this day, it's not a Best Picture pick that I regret or look, kind of ponder on. It's just like, yeah,
Right.
at the time it was a big movie, so I understand that, right? But one thing that people don't understand, right, just rounding things up, right, is that there were some people, or let's just say some critics, who didn't feel the film, right? So, perfect example would be Roger Ebert, right? Yeah, he gave it a 2 out of 4. He felt it was just too glum, it was too grim, it took itself way too seriously, it was just a down of a film, right? And I understand that criticism, like just recapping, like watching over the years and then recapping it in preparation for this, right? Yes, it is very grim, it is very dark, it is very bleak, right? There's like little glimmers of hope in the movie, but yeah, it just show up ever so often, right? But given the material, I couldn't see this playing out any other way, in my opinion. The show needed to be grim, it needed to be dark, right? You're talking about a Roman general who family get killed and he get betrayed by a man who ended up becoming emperor and become a gladiator. Like, that's some grim stuff, right? And how they play it as this whole revenge saga thing is like, yeah, like that's how a show like that need to play out, right? But I don't know, I guess it's because of the nature of what people were expecting. They was expecting like an adventure film, so they was expecting something along the lines of a Pirates of the Caribbean where there will be something fun taking place, and I was like, nah, this is not that, right? But then that leads to another thing that I feel like a lot of people forget about this movie, right? A lot of people remember the gladiatorial stuff. They remember the Colosseum stuff. They remember the fights and everything, right? But there's also political intrigue going on. There was this subplot involving Commodus, who is played quite brilliantly by Joaquin Phoenix, and I think this was the first time I ever saw him, in a film, right? And yeah, he was just the guy that you love to hate, right? And then it got even worse when you realize, yeah, he had this whole incestuous thing going on with his sister, Lucilla, who's played by Connie Nielsen, right? But yeah, he was just a guy that you just loved to hate. But he was scum. He was just scummy throughout that movie. That's the moment the man killed his father, Marcus Aurelius of all people, by choking him out, boy, I was like, nah, boy, you, right? But yeah, there was all this political intrigue going on with him trying to pretty much dismantle the Senate, right? Because he don't want this to be, a republic. He don't want Rome to be a republic. He wanted it to be an empire, so he want to rule it as an emperor, right? So it was that stuff going on, right? But that's not the stuff that people remember from the show. They just remember the action. But it was the political intrigue really that made the show, that added an extra layer to the film as well, right? And that is for me why I admire the director's cut, right? Because I felt like that went in a little bit more into the detail into what was going on there, right? Actually, and it's Ridley Scott, right? You always have a director's cut, right? But I'll talk about that with Gladiator II, right? Yeah, I felt with this one, it just added more, right? But I understand in terms of pacing and time, right? You have to cut those moments out, right? But yeah,
right.
The funny thing is, just to wrap things up though, is the theatrical cut that people remember seeing in theaters, theatrical, right? And loving, right? And call it best film of 2000, whatever, right? And being happy when it won Best Picture, all that kind of stuff, right? But it's one of those shows that, on the surface, right, does play out like a solid standard film, right? It does play into those beats, just the brutality, the primalness of it all, right? But there was bigger elements going on as well too, and I actually admire the fact that really, explore those things as well. So it wasn't just some sort of like blood, it wasn't just some blood-soaked revenge saga. There was other things going on as well, right? So last point I'll make with this, right, is that I still love the first film, right? But it's not like one of my all-time favorite movies. And I wouldn't put this up there as one of the greatest films I've ever seen, right? I still put Braveheart over this, because Braveheart impacted me in just emotionally. It just, the ending of Braveheart still brings me to tears, right? And I actually own Braveheart on Blu-ray, right? But I don't own Gladiators yet, right? But I'll also get to that in my review of Gladiator 2, right? But it's still a show that I love. It's still a show that I admire. I understand why people at the time didn't like it. Again, I feel like it just has to do with how grim the material is, but I feel like it needed to be that way. Like, it's not an adventure film. It's a historical drama, but with action in it, right? It's a revenge saga. That's what it is, right? But the amazing thing about this show here, right, when looking at it now, right, you can remember this movie came out 24 years ago, right, is that, yeah, a lot of, movies within the whole, or films within that whole medieval period piece kind of, genre owe a lot to that film, right? You wouldn't have 300, you wouldn't have Game of Thrones, you wouldn't even have
Right.
the Spartacus TV series, right? If it wasn't for Gladiator. So yeah, love it or hate it, that show was, yeah, the one that really kind of showed like, hey, we could take we could take our old genre and give it a fresh coat of paint and really make it impactful, that people will be entertained and intrigued by what's going on, right? And yeah, I felt like it really started with this first film, right? I still love the film. I still have it up there as one of, it's still one of my favorite Ridley Scott films, right? Hands down, right? But I can't genuinely say it is like, top 10 as far as like, best, action films or whatever it is goes. It's just a great film that I absolutely enjoy. If I were to rate it now, having seen it, having recapped it after all these years, I would still give it like, a light 4.5 out of 5, right? I would still have it. I would still give a high rating for it, right? But it's still not a 5 out of 5 like a Braveheart. Like that is definite 5 out of 5, right? And that I could put up there as one of the best things I've ever seen in my life, right? But for what Gladiator was and when it came out and how it pretty much shaped the culture as far as films of that genre go, yeah, I mean, you can't deny its influence to this day, right? But yeah, Ricardo, take it away. Your history with the show, how you feel about it now, and rate it.
Yeah, and I was like a big super fan of the first one. It's one of those movies that my friends really like it, and almost every one of my friends love this movie except for me. I just like it enough. It's good, but I'll admit I didn't see it in theaters. I saw this in on cable like a year after when when HBO so
yeah,
stuff.
I remember when HBO
Right.
premiered that. I think I saw it for the premiere. I think so. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it's that, and I never like super love this movie, but everybody I know love this movie except for me apparently. So yeah, it's a movie that I consider a great movie. I understand why it wins awards and whatnot, but I never was super into this because like I don't really care for the sword and sandal stuff now. But yeah, if you get into like the history of Rome, or you understand that, you realize a lot of it is like mostly uh, embellished. It's to say the least. But so the idea of it, but it's just a good cast. Russell Crowe's pretty good in this. What's his name? Jaimin Hunsu, he good in this. Uh, they make the action work and for what it is, and it's great set pieces and the grand spectacle of it. Even though even at the time I find the Rome look like crappy CG. It's like, oh, this look like a PlayStation cutscene. Like, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
Admittedly, the CG don't hold up. Like especially them two wide shots of the,
yeah,
I should say the drone shot, if you will, of the Colosseum. I
right.
will admit though, Gladiator 2, the VFX for could they actually replicate it? That looked way better than the
Oh
one
yeah, yeah,
in 2000. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it's no. So yeah, no. But it is a lot of great performances and great roles. Solid story, and it is one of those movies that uh, it's always come back with respect to this. Like I don't love this or I get, but I get why this would be popular. It's kind of like the first Fast and Furious movie. It's like that, right? This gonna be a big movie for a lot of people, but not for me because it's like just kind of straightforward and normal, and it might be my hoity-toity type of thinking, but I never really like super love this as a just as a general movie thing. It's like it's fine, whatever, in and out. I dig it. It's fine. So that is it.
Right, but
Rated, yeah,
what would you rate it now?
yeah, no, like I give it like a 8 out of 10. It's good. Like it is well made, and look, Scott is Scott. He does always cook. So very rarely Scott will like do trash, right? So it's fine. Like it's pretty good, and it does what it needs to do. All things considered. So that's about it. Yeah. Let's get to the new one.
Yeah, yeah. So just a couple things before we said, well, one point about the first film and then one point about the second film, and then we'll jump into the second one proper, right? So we should mention, as hip hop heads, right? Yeah, it's reference, its inclusion in Jay-Z's Black Album, for the
Oh yeah,
track
right.
What More Can I Say, so it's
Yeah,
now part of
yeah.
hip hop culture, are you not entertained? I mean in the
Yeah, yeah,
intro. Yeah. I love how that comes full circle with hearing No Church in the Wild in the first trailer for
right,
Gladiator 2,
right,
which,
right, right.
yeah, I remember some
Yeah,
people had issues, well, for me, just the issue is just the whole trailer thing, like, it just use a line it's just a line that the JCC
Right.
and it's repeated like why and it sound weird.
Yeah.
Could they either echo it like ugh, like oh they could have do that better, man. But yeah, that in the trailer was kind of dope, right? But that's that, right? And then something that hit me actually after I watched Gladiator 2, right, is that yeah, right. So when it comes to sequels, right, to Ridley Scott films, right? So of course, when it comes to stuff like Blade Runner, well, Denis Villeneuve did the sequel for that, right? Alien, for example, right, which Ridley did in 79, right? Remember, James Cameron did the sequel in 86, right? And then afterwards, well, after 3 and 4, that's when Ridley came back and did, Prometheus and Covenant, right? So, oddly enough, this is actually like his first official, like, follow-up after the lead film, if you really think about it, right? So it's not like his first sequel, but like it is his first sequel in the sense that it follows right after a film that he made, right? Which was, the first Gladiator, right? It's not like somebody did something in between that and then he just stepped back into the director's chair, right? Yeah, he actually followed up from his film, right? And I actually think that's really amazing though, that you would actually follow up a film that you made 24 years ago, right? That actually is really amazing, right? But yeah, that hit me legit when I came out these cinemas, like wow, like that's actually like the man first true sequel, not like somebody filmed something in between that film, his film or whatnot, right? So that was really interesting, right? But yeah, Gladiator 2, I don't think anybody saw this coming, even the fans, because I mean, like I say, I love the film, but we were not clamoring for a sequel to this, right? Similar, it's just like Braveheart. Like Braveheart start and end, similar to Braveheart. I mean, the lead, character Maximus died, right? So it's like, well, so when you hear in Gladiator 2, it's like, well, okay, what?
I know about a weird backstory with respect to this. You got to think Russell Crowe wanted a sequel, and somebody the guy wrote this bizarre. I forget the guy's name.
Oh, I know you're talking about some real fantastical thing because because Maximus was in purgatory and somehow he fights the forces of hell.
Yeah, people want to make that. People kind of want to see that movie now.
Yeah, but the speculation is that the screenwriter did that on purpose just to say, look, Russell, no. Let me not do a sequel to this. Like, do American Gangster and just do that, right? And by the way, I mean both of us we fucks with American Gangster.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, nobody saw this sequel coming, right? So when you I think I was hearing rumblings of it last year, late last year. Oh, Ridley Scott doing work on. Oh, I know. I remember how, right? So. Right after, I think after he dropped Last Duel, right, which was one of our favorite films of 2021. I think it was either 2021, right? Because that was the same year that he dropped House of Gucci, right? Yeah. I can't remember if there was anything else. Oh, right. There was Napoleon. How could we forget, right? With Joaquin Phoenix, right? So right when that movie dropped now.
Where was the one with Ben Affleck? I never gosh.
Last Duel, that was 2021.
Yeah. Right, yeah.
Yeah, same year as House of Gucci. Yeah. But yeah, when Napoleon dropped, right, which was underwhelming though, even though it was really going back to that glory days of spectacular battles and whatnot. He was tapping into that gladiator energy, right? But it's just the story was just underwhelming, right? And I honestly don't care to watch the director's cut, which is out right now. It's just like, I don't know. I don't really want to watch that over again, right? But yeah, point is, we was hearing since that movie dropped, right? That, he working on Gladiator 2. And you're like, what? Gladiator 2, right? But then what also make it interesting is that he himself was directing it. It's one of those things you think somebody else would have helmed now, But it's like, oh, really, Scott? Really serious about this? Okay. And then that first trailer drop is like, oh, okay. Then you continue on the story. It's not about Maximus, but it's about his son Lucius, right? And we learn what happened to him and why he is in the situation that he is in, right? Okay, yeah, when they drop that reveal, it's like, wait, that makes no sense. But then when you see the movie, it's like, oh, that's why. Okay, right? But the big sell, of course, was Denzel Washington, right? And just from the bits that we saw there, it's like, yeah, we knew from the jump that he was going to kill it with his performance, right? And we'll touch on his performance in a bit, right? So yeah, The Cell is a sequel, it's an official sequel to Gladiator, the first one.
Right.
It's from Ridley Scott, and it have Denzel Washington of all people in this, right? So I mean, we had to go and see this, right? So for me, just to wrap things up, I did not get the chance to see it in IMAX, unfortunately. I went to Movie Town to see it yesterday, right? But it was a good thing, right? Because I got, dog, that sound design, boy. But yeah, I'll touch on that in my review. But yeah, Ricardo, if you don't mind, take it away. What was Gladiator II about?
Oh, it was, we're following Maximus's kid this time. Interesting take, all right. Not super original, but let's see where they're going to go with this. So Lucius, yeah, he's the thing, and he lives with his wife. His wife, wife get killed in an attack, but like not really like that. His wife's killed, and then he gets sold into slavery, and then he meets up with Macronus, that is Denzel character, who's like he was a slave too, but he become this kind of like a arms dealer type kind of figure, and he have his own like shenanigans and his own aims that he going after the two young emperors. And I said it's just straightforward. That Paul Mescal, I'll try to remember that.
Yeah, who I mentioned a couple of years back with a great film called After Sun, which he was nominated for Best Actor for, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm glad he got the nom, even though he didn't win. But yeah, After Sun was my introduction to him. That was like one of my top 10 favorite films of 2022, I believe it was. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So it's that's pretty much a plot. Nothing. But you had to get into like the back and forth about what's going on. But that's pretty much it. And I like this movie. It's a lot of spectacle. I wish. I saw it in a pretty good screen, but I probably wish I would. I probably would have liked to see it in IMAX. And sorry to say, but I think only Denzel kind of saves this. I don't hate everybody else. They're fine, but like it's just the energy not there, and it's a weird sequel. But it's really feel at times it's as good as you're gonna get from a sequel from 24 years later. It is reliant on the spectacle. Like it has a lot of like weird fights, like the fight with the baboons, and like all the fights are good. And again, Denzel always feel like at times he feels like he in the same movie with them, like he just doing something, he doing his own thing. But it still works, but it nowhere near as interesting or as engaging as the first one. And I didn't really like the first one. Sorry to say. So that's how I feel about this. Like it's fine. Like, and I could see people taking it. And if you're going, you go for Denzel because he really like does something really fast. He does this. I'm waiting for. Here's the thing with this, right? I'm waiting for a director's cut. Ridley Scott is one man you could let a director's cut slide. He's the one man you say no, director's cut gonna be hard because he's always do that. He'll give you a kind of a mediocre movie in the theatrical cut, and then you get a real hard director's cut. Right? We get out of Kingdom of Heaven and shit, right? So it's that. That's what it's feeling like. That is what it's totally feeling like. I don't hate this though because the action is pretty good. It's just balls to the wall action. Again, it's not really meant to be realistic. It's not really meant to be actually historical, whatever. But the just the sheer spectacle of it really works. But the energy not there, and I'll admit is because I'm probably just too old for this. Like in the sense that I kind of it's hard to get me to give a shit about something like this in this way. Like you gotta come good. You gotta do something really interesting, original. I didn't feel interesting, original. But I'm waiting for a director's cut for this, right? I hope we get one, right? Really, he has some HD, so I don't know. But it is alright still. It's just the machination's not interesting. I heard that guy who was playing that boy from Saltburn. I think he was supposed to be the
or Riley Q. Yeah, he was supposed to be one of the All right, so we have evil Emperor twins now, so them is the two, like, well, not the main baddies, but we assume at first they were the main baddies, right? So yeah.
Right. I felt if he was in it, I would have probably enjoyed more. But it's fine. Yeah.
It would not matter to me. I was just more thinking about the characters more than anything else. But
Right. Yeah, and so that's about it. Like it just came and went for me because I really felt this could have been not bigger, but like just more interesting. And it was like, it's just more raw machinations. But because I can't give a shit about any of these characters other than Denzel's character, I was like, all right, well, moving on. It just tell a story and then you move on from it. I can't say I hated it. I don't hate it, but it is something that I really felt describe this role. It felt like it's the Top Gun problem, where okay, we're getting a sequel after how many years, and they're gonna just give us like the pat thing, and it's so predictable. Is that it really felt like a Top Gun Maverick kind of thing, right?
Right.
It's that. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. So yeah, that's my initial kind of feeling.
All right, so sorry to break your heart, there, boy Ricardo, but I found this out last night, because I said I saw this film yesterday, right? Yeah, so apparently Ridley is not putting out a director's cut of this,
Right.
but there were scenes that he filmed, right? But
So that's not.
yeah, but he tried to what he presented here. He tried to make it, more authentic to his vision in the sense that when this is out, there will be no need for him to put out all the other scenes that he took out, right? So, i.e., deleted scenes, right? And there was this little news that came out, prior to this movie's release here, right? Yeah, where apparently, there was a kiss that, Denzel had a gay kiss that took place in the film,
Okay.
and they cut that out, right? Seeing the film, I know what scene it is. I feel like it was just one snip, if you will, of that scene. Because when you see the film, I can't believe, because how they spin it. Like at first, I was thinking it was some new scene, like some fresh scene that they just take out in its entirety. But no, I think that he just cut that one little piece out, for whatever reason. But when you see the film, you will know when you see it, you'll know what I talk about. But I feel like that is the moment where it's like, all right, let me just trim this a little bit, you know what I mean? So people don't stop and be like, oh, Denzel, how dare you, though? But
We still on this road.
but here's the thing.
I can understand this like 30 years ago, but no.
But here's the thing. Right, but here's the thing, right? There's a blink and you miss it moment. Now, slight spoiler. Yeah, where Denzel's character, Macrinus, right, reveals that he is bisexual. He is a blink and you miss it moment. Like I hear it, I was like, all right, well that justifies it. Okay, cool. Moving on.
That's it. Yeah, but the thing is that why is this an issue? Because like it's fucking Rome. Like it's Rome.
Thank you. Yeah, like people. Here's the thing. Like I know people. Like all right, like people have Denzel on this pedestal, right? I know people who would not even go to cinema to see anything but a movie starring Denzel, right? So I know people who went all the way to watch Equalizer 3 because he was in that, right? They wouldn't watch nothing else, right? I know people like that, right? But I think that if those same people saw Denzel, especially at his age, do that, they'd be like, oh, what is this? But no, it's Rome, dog. Like, come on.
I don't know why this argument, but whatever, moving on.
Look, in the previous Gladiator, you had a fellow who's lusting after his sister, man. Sorry, that's just how things were, take it or leave it, right? But anyway, so yeah, unfortunately, we will not get a director's cut of this. I feel like, when the Blu-ray comes out, you'll just see like deleted scenes and whatnot, right? Because yes, even in the the release of Gladiator, the director's cut, I think there were deleted scenes there, like just stuff that did not even make it to the director's cut, even, right? So how I feel about this movie, right? Gladiator 2, right? Especially as somebody who loves the first film, is that it's like Deadpool 1 and 2, where where I would buy the first film in a heartbeat on Blu-ray, but and here's the thing, here's the interesting thing about this movie here. I think that's why they released this movie at this point in time. The 25th anniversary of the first film will be next year. So I feel that they're going to have this big release where they're going to have Gladiator 1 and 2 in one pack. I would buy that. But I would not buy Gladiator 2 separately. I will buy the two of them together. That's how I feel about this movie. It works as a great double feature. You watch the first one and then you just see the follow-up, right? The follow-up not gonna live up to the hype, to the level of the first one. And I think even Ridley Scott knew this going into this film, because I mean, look, 24 years, right, since the first film came out, right? And then also to his age as well too, because he in his mid-80s as well too, right? But what I will say though, like, I know, you felt the opposite, right? I felt that really still brought that energy that he put into that first film, Dread. From the storytelling to where the character arcs went, to where he even brought back that political intrigue stuff there, because I wasn't sure what Denzel's role in all of this was going to be. I thought he was just similar to this actor Oliver Reed's character in the first film, where he was just this guy who just
right.
grabbed all these slaves and trained them to be
Yeah.
gladiators. It's like, win the crowd and you win your freedom. I thought he was going to be that guy, right? But the way how he was hyping up Denzel's performance, like, nah, I know it's going to be more than that, right? But then when you see it, it's like, oh, he just want to get his way up into the big leagues and do things. That's all you'll see without spoiling anything. Oh, that makes sense, right? And yes, that brings up the whole political stuff again, right? Because yes, you have these two assholes, asshole twins who running Rome now, right? They are emperors now, right? You have the Senate that's still wondering what to do, was still fearing for their lives, just like in the last film and whatnot, right? So you have all that stuff going on, right? So I like that there was that going on, but it wasn't just about the gladiatorial stuff, right? So it really felt like we were going back to how the first film was, right? But like I said, this one was never going to top the first one, right? Even, no matter how hard it tried, right? Even with the, improved visual effects, right? It wasn't going to top it, right? Because, like it or not, Gladiator is near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, right? Especially with Russell Crowe's performance and all that kind of stuff there. So when you're bringing in new characters, even if they're related to Maximus, it still wouldn't hold a candle, unfortunately, right? But I still felt that really did a damn good job in terms of just bringing us back into that world. It literally feels like this movie came on like a few years after the first one, which is funny to see, right? Given the span of time, right? And yes, one of the big criticism people have is that Paul Mescal is no Russell Crowe. No, he is not, right? But I felt that
he's not meant to be, right?
Yeah, he's not meant to be neither, right? So one thing I really do admire the film for not trying to repeat the first film, not trying to replicate everything about it, right? Yes, there will be the callbacks to the first film, some of which are subtle, some of which aren't subtle. The stuff that aren't subtle, like just slight spoiler, includes the score, which actually was done by Harry Gregson Williams. Who is a great composer in his own right? But unfortunately, I felt like his score just paled in comparison to Hans Zimmer, though. Like, there was this moments in Hans Zimmer's score that just still resonates in my brain, right? And Harry actually kind of replicate a few, like, melodies from the original score. I just say, like, all right, I get it, bruh, but still, it just reminded me how great Hans Zimmer's score was, right? like a sort. But yeah, Harry's stuff didn't really stand out at all to me, right? But that's not to say that it wasn't serviceable to capture the vibe of the film itself, right? But back to Paul Mescal, right? Like, I thought that for what it's worth, he was a really good character, right? It was justified why Lucius should be the one to continue on this saga, right? It actually makes sense. I like where he's framed in all of this, where, slight spoiler, after events in the first film, he was separated from his mother. And yes, his mother actually shows up in the film as well, too. I was actually worried about what her role was going to be in the film, but actually where she's at in this film makes a lot of sense, in my opinion, right? And I also like how the film kind of plays on who's the real villain, right? And this touches on one of the main themes of the first film, which was just how corrupt Rome was, right? And how, people forgot about Marcus Aurelius's dream of, making Rome a greater society, right? So yeah, at first you think Pedro Pascal is the villain, right? Because he's this Roman general who show up and invade Lucius' home and, kill the wife and all that kind of stuff. Also, I forgot to mention too, one of the prisoners who was there, right? This black guy, the actor's Peter Mensa. I haven't seen that guy in a long while, he actually was in 300 and he was in the Spartacus series,
Oh,
if you remember him.
The guy who get kicked in the hole?
Yeah, who get kicked in the pit. That's him, right? This is Sparta. Boom, that's him, right? Yeah. When I see the face, like, oh shit, you were this too. But I find it funny because he was in the Spartacus series. He was playing one of those freed slaves / gladiators who in a school teaching gladiators. He was that character in the Spartacus series. But just take a little break here, right? I know you don't really care for the sword and sandal genre, right? But let's ask it out of curiosity. Did you watch the Spartacus series?
No, I did not. I was aware of it. I know the main actor died. One of the main actors.
He died after the first season and then brought in somebody else, right?
I never get into it.
Okay,
I just know it had like Lucy Lawless in it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, but the sell just the sell of it before we get back to Gladiator 2, it was 300, but just way more over the top and way more gratuitous. Like, in terms of the violence and the sex, it was like a more edgier, more more R-rated version of 300. But yes, it was heavily inspired by 300, right down to the music. You could see it in that, right? But anyway, I was surprised to see his face in that, right? But point is, I like how the show just constantly plays on, who is the real villain, right? At first you think it's Pedro Pascal's character, but you realize, no, he actually just roped into it all. He kind of got called to do this thing, and you don't want to do that, right? Then you're thinking, oh, it's just gonna be those Emperor twins who are the bad guys, right? But then ultimately, this kind of boils down to being to the mean body being Denzel, in all of this, right?
Yeah, Macronos, right?
Yeah,
he does want to be part. He want to be part of the system, but not overturn the system, no.
Right. Yes. Yeah. You're right. Everybody will see this with their reviews. Yes, he is the best thing about this movie, though. Just off his charisma alone, though, he makes it work, right? But I just love that, again, going back, bringing things full circle, right? That same energy that he brought to Frank Lucas in American Gangster, he brings that here, right? Just this charming guy who you're not supposed to like, but there's just something about that guy, I love that he has, because again, it's the solar sandal genre, right? So yes, there will be these theatrical moments, right? Where everybody has to be sort of larger than life because it's Rome and all that kind of stuff, right? So we have his moment. I'm not gonna spoil when it happens, but I was like, yeah, that's the moment right there. I just love that while he is being theatrical, right? He's not over the top. He is not being grandiose. He's not taking this, he's not making things campy, right? But yes, he is showing off here. He's just showing how versatile of an actor he is, right? And yes, he is the best thing about the movie, right? Now, while that is true, right, a part of me feels like I still feel because he was the best thing about the movie, though, I felt like it just made Paul Mescal's character just slightly underwhelming, though, because ultimately this is supposed to be Paul Mescal's story. This is his movie, just like how Russell Crowe was the star of the show, not Joaquin Phoenix, right? Is one of those, weird things, right? But yeah, it's unfortunately, yes, Denzel is just so great, the man just end up towering over everybody, right? But I felt like that was at the detriment of Paul, right? Because yeah, this is Paul's film, right? But then not just because he's the star of it too, but yeah, this is like his first foray into action, right? I think that he did, like, the man bulk up for the role and whatnot, and I felt like he was really convincing in those action sequences, right? Even if there's a stuntman involved, like when he's there, when he is on screen, yeah, the man sold it, right? But it really should be Paul's story, right? Well, Paul leading the film, but whatever, right? As far as the action sequences go, what I will give this show credit here, boy, is that somehow it managed to top what we got in the first film, right? Because like in the first film, yes, what you saw there was like the stuff that you would imagine when it comes to, Coliseum fights or whatnot, right? But this one took it to a whole new level, right? But I would love to think that the stuff that we see here is based off of historical fact, right? But they just embellish it and just heighten it to a level where, it's so absurd that you just have to enjoy it off of that, right? So, case in point, that I was hearing about this moment, right? But then when I see it for myself, I was like, this actually kind of makes sense. Yeah, the flooding of the interior of the Coliseum to stage a battle, and there are sharks in the water, like, like logically, you should stop yourself and ask how you get the sharks in the first place. But look, given the nature of the theatricality of, because that's one thing they set up in the first film, right? It's not just fighting for the sake of fighting. It's meant to, replicate moments in Roman history. So this is the battle of this. This is the siege at this, right? So yes, the context of the fight make a lot of sense. But yes, at that time I was asking myself, how do you get the sharks inside there? But I was like, look, that's not the point. And even Ridley and all will say, look, that's not the point. Shut up and just watch the story, right? Don't think about the sharks. Just think about the spectacle of it, right? And yes, you are right, Ricardo. Yeah, this show just revels in spectacle. Yeah, the spectacle of it alone is, well, that and Denzel's performance, right? We make this show worth checking out on the big screen, right? But yeah, those action scenes were great, both in and out of the Coliseum. I thought that those sequences work, right? I actually thought that the story was very well told and very well paced as well too for its 2.5 hour runtime, right? And keep in mind also too that this is the theatrical cut, right? So again, we're not getting a director's cut, right? So I feel like with the director's cut, we'll get more detail into like the stuff that was going on behind the scenes, right? So if I have like one gripe with the show though, I felt we could have gotten more out of them Emperor twins, right? Like they was there and it just meant to look crazy and psychotic, I get, but I felt like there was stuff involving them that was just cut out for for pacing reasons. I feel like it's that. So I would love to see those moments though, 'cause I felt like those moments would have fleshed out those characters even more, right? It just came off as just, crazy people who, well, not crazy people, right? But they just drunk off their own power. That's what it is. That's what they're playing off, right? And then lastly, as far as just the character arc of Lucius, I thought worked as well. How they connected to Marcus, who's played by Pedro Pascal, and his mom as well too. Just the progression of things work, right? Yes, it does remind you of the same progression that Maximus had in the first film, but they do like these nice little tweaks here or there and whatnot to make it a little bit different, right? So I appreciate that, right? And lastly, before we wrap things up, right? I actually like the ending, right? I don't love it. It's not as strong as the one for the first one. Like that one felt like, it felt like, okay, this was the end. This is the end of the story. This is the full stop. We could wrap up here, right? But I found out after the fact when I came home, just the little Googling, I found this out. Yeah, really want to do a Gladiator 3.
Okay.
So that would explain why the ending is the way it is, right? Always say without spoiling anything, it's ambiguous, but it also ties back to the first film. But it's one of those endings where you had to really sit down and really be like, I wonder what that really means, or I think I know what it means, right? But it wasn't as strong enough for me to warrant that kind of thought into it. I just saw it and say, oh, okay, that's how they ended. All right, okay. Not gonna tune into some spoiler review and hear somebody explain what the ending means, or you don't have those YouTube videos where they say, "Oh, the ending explained." I don't need that for this. Like I saw it, I was like, all right, that's how they ended, right? But yeah, here and that you have a part where like, well, first off, why? You know what I mean? Like we really, you really want to do this? Really? Okay. Like I don't know if this is just him trying to justify what happened with Prometheus and Alien Covenant. I don't know. I don't know. But so it's like, all right, we really don't need that tree though, right? But at the end of the day, just to wrap things up, right? I could see people finding this sequel to be kind of pointless, right? Like, okay, the first one told its story, why are we continuing this for, right? But I would defend the show and say that, somehow, I think it's just because Ridley loved the film so much and he just put so much energy into it. And again, just think the fact that he is in his mid-80s and he's still bringing that energy that he had in the 2000s, right? Something like this, right? But I feel like he just loved this world and exploring Rome so much that he just wanted to continue the story on, right? So yes, admittedly, it's not a sequel that we needed, right? But somehow it still works, right? It's still entertaining. It's still justified why it's Lucius' story and whatnot, right? You get the spectacle, you get the stuff that you know and love about the first film. You get the callbacks and whatnot, which I know might rub some people off the wrong way, but still, I admire what was done there, right? But yes, at the end of the day, it is still about the spectacle of it all, and for Denzel's scene-stealing performance, right? Which, have could potentially, give him a best supporting actor nod. Who knows, right? I like in my head, I'm not really thinking about this show getting any Oscar nominations, right? But dog is Ridley Scott is Gladiator II. It could happen. So yeah, if we're up to me, I think Denzel could get a nomination for his performance in that, right? That's a best supporting actor for this, right? But yeah, for me, rating wise, I will give this a strong 3.5 to like 4 out of 5, man. I think that it is worth checking out. If you could see it on the biggest screen you can. See it on the biggest screen that you can. I would highly recommend that, right? Because yeah, for me, just the sound design of it just blew me away though. Just especially those Colosseum scenes though. It really took me back to when I first saw the first Gladiator back in 2000. Really brought me back to that, right? And it really does feel like a worthy progression, like a progression from the first film as well, right? There's like a solid enough continuation of the first film, And yes, it is a worthy follow-up to the first film, right? But yes, and many people will know this going into this. In no way is this better than the first film, and in no way would it have been better than the first one anyway, right? Just given the bar that was raised with the first film, and just the gap of time, Jack. Think about it. 24 years, right? 24 years, right? And yeah, we now getting a sequel to this, right? Yeah, Ricardo, your fan was a rating on Gladiator 2.
Yeah, again, I was super charged to go into it. So, and again, because I'm not a big fan of the original, I wasn't hyped one way or the other. So it's fine. But yeah, I dug it for what it was trying to do and see. It's like, alright, okay, it just, as a evolution, I didn't expect it to be super smart or interesting or engaging in any meaningful sense. So my logic was just, well, it's fine. So I give it like a 6 out of 10. It was just straightforward, shenanigans and, about political back and forths and thing. And again, you only go for Denzel. So that is the main thing about it. Yeah, 6 out of 10 for me.